welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is an update in the Delphi homicides. We are talking about Indiana versus Richard Allen and justice for Abby and Libby. This is actually going to be my first deep dive episode into the Delphi homicides, and we're going to do a review of who is who of the Delphi case because there are so many names involved. So let's go and get us started. By the way, this is voiceover only because it is a PowerPoint presentation. So here we go. All right, so we're going to talk first of all the victims. We have Liberty or Libby German. She was born December 27th, 2002. Her mother is Carrie Timmons and her father, Derek German. I believe they were split, but I'm not exactly sure regarding their relationship. But I do know for a lot of the time she was raised by her grandparents, which we'll get to in just a second. So Carrie Timmons is the mother. Derek German is her father. She has his name obviously. And Kelsey Siebert, she's married now, so she has, I'm sure, her husband's name, I believe. But Kelsey is her sister, her older sister. She is the one that dropped her off at Monon High Bridge, dropped her and Abigail Williams off at the Monon High Bridge the morning of the or afternoon of the incident. Whoops, too far. Sorry. Okay, so up next we have Libby's grandparents. We have her paternal grandmother. So this is Derek German's mother, Becky Patty, sorry, Becky Patty. And she is married to Mike Patty. So this is actually Libby's step grandfather, but she was very close to them, as you can see in the picture. And they helped raise her, I believe. All right, so the next slide we have is Abigail or Abby Williams, and she was born June 23rd, 2003. She loved animals, hence the cat she's hugging there. All right, and her mother is Anna Williams. And her father, I could not find a picture of him, but he posted this on his social media, a picture of Abby going fishing. She was caught a fish with him. So sure that was a nice memory. All right, so the law enforcement's number one suspect, as we all know, is Richard Allen. Richard Allen was a pharmacy technician at CVS for many years. He has no priors, only traffic, very minor traffic violations. He actually is the one who reached out to law enforcement in 2017 to help. He went to them to provide his eyewitness to, what he observed that day, everything that he saw and people that he encountered on the trail, even though he never did describe encountering anyone that was of the description of Abby and Libby's, physical description. He did see three other individuals, three underage girls, teenage girls, preteen girls, same ages around, I think. Um, of Abby and Libby. So he saw these three individuals. They remembered seeing somebody also in their testimony, or statements. So he just went to describe the things that he saw, hoping that something he said could help law enforcement. And what is it? 5 years later, he was charged with 2 counts of homicide on October 28th, 2022. Because of his willingness to go be a good citizen and help law enforcement, this is the thanks he gets. He was arrested on October 31st, 2022. Again, no priors, no incidents of violence or anything like that. So it's really random and out of the blue that Richard Allen would just do something like this. Maybe. Maybe he's a total psychopath and he did it, but I don't think so, based on what I've looked into in this case, only because, the state isn't giving us much. But no, so he goes to law enforcement, tries to give them a tip or clues, and 5 years later, he ends up arrested for the crimes, which is just horrific. If you think about it, they never would have known that he was there if he hadn't gone to them in the first place. So think about that before the next time you decide you're going to go help law enforcement on something. I mean, I am pro law enforcement, but geez, the cases that I've been um, covering and, the high profile cases that are happening right now have some potential law enforcement misconduct going on. And if it happens in these cases, it could happen anywhere. And I really do think that it happens everywhere, but we just aren't necessarily opening our eyes to all of it. Anyways, so yeah, he helps law enforcement and then he gets arrested 5 years later. His wife is Kathy, and they had been married for many years, kind of led a quiet life. Um, his mother is Janice, and not a great picture, but that's the best I got, so sorry about that. And if you look down below, um, this is in a weird twist of fate. In 2018, Richard Allen's daughter, she's now I think 23 or something like that. She's an adult, so that's why I put her on here. She in 2018, she actually took a picture on that bridge. That is the Monon High Bridge that she is sitting on in that like black and whitish colored photo. That's Brittany's Zapanta, and that is his daughter. And yeah, she weirdly took a picture on that. Not that it's weird, but I mean, it was like a year later. So I don't know. What do you guys think about the coincidence? Is it just something everybody does in that town? I don't know. Maybe after the girls ended up losing their lives on that in that area by the bridge in that vicinity, maybe more and more people go to it to take photos. I don't know. But I do think it's just kind of like a little strange there. But anyways, moving on. I don't think it's anything strange that has to do with Brittany or Richard Allen's family, and I don't think it implicates him in any way, shape, or form. I just want to say that. I want to be clear. I don't think it's strange in that regard. I do think it's just like a weird twist of fate that she happened to do that, and then her dad ends up being the potential the number one suspect of law enforcement. So now let's talk about law enforcement. Speaking of, first up we have a Stephen Mullen. He is chief of police for the Delphi Police Department. And he comes up in various hearings and motions and things because he was part of the investigation. He was into, writing reports and things like that. So Steve Mullen comes into he even provided testimony, I think, for the defense in their hearings, trying to get some evidence in. So that is Steve Mullen. Up next, we have Tony Liggett, sheriff of the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and he is part of Unified Command. Now, up next, we got Tobe Lesenby, who is the chief deputy. So I think like the second in command or maybe third in command. I'm not sure. And he's with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office as well. He's not with Unified Command, but yeah. So Tony Liggett is Sheriff Tony Liggett. Jerry Holman, lead detective, and he is with the Indiana State Police. There are so many law enforcement agencies in this, it's so hard to keep track. So let's backtrack. Chief of Police, Delphi Police Department, Steve Mullen. Carroll County Sheriff's Office. We have Tony Liggett and Tobe Lesenby. Tony is Unified Command. Then we have Jerry Holman, who is with the Indiana State Police, yet another law enforcement agency. And he is with Unified Command. And we also have Doug Carter, who's the superintendent of the Indiana State Police. And I always thought that he was Unified Command or had something to do with it because he's always been so outspoken, but he is not. He's not part of Unified Command that I know of or that I could find. But he's always done a lot of pressers. He's been out there openly, publicly bashing, whoever might have done this and saying that they're turning over every lead, everything that they're doing, blah, blah, blah. He's kind of like the mouthpiece for the Indiana State Police. Not that everything he's saying is particularly all true or accurate. All right, so next up, these are the three honest cops that I've been talking about, the three cops that have been going down that Odinist line. They had been following the evidence and not making the evidence fit their case like the other law enforcement were doing. So Todd Click is a detective in Rushville, Indiana, for the Rushville, Indiana police, and Greg Ferenczi, who is deceased now. He died on the job. He was basically ambushed. The office that he worked in was ambushed, and as he came out, he was shot down by another, I think it was like another officer of the law or former officer or something. I can't remember all the details, but it's very tragic and awful. So Greg Ferenczi is no longer with us, but when he was here, he was a detective for the Terre Haute Police Department, and he was an FBI task force officer. So um, it's not really clear what his capacity was in investigating the Delphi case, whether he was under Terre Haute Police or maybe the FBI task force, possibly, potentially. But it's interesting to note all of these different detectives are detectives in different police departments, different agencies, but they all were following the evidence towards this Odinist defense, this Odinist theory that it is tied with some kind of occult homicide, tied with these runes and this magic and the magic of the forest and the water and all of that. So these three cops were mentioned in the defense's first Frank's memo, all three of them, and yeah, they were the ones that were honest and going down this line. Finally, Kevin Murphy is the other detective. I could not find a picture of him, even though he's in Indiana State Police. I guess they don't have all their troopers on their website. So there we have it. That is the three honest cops, Todd Click, Greg Frenzy, and Kevin Murphy. We will still wonder what he looks like. All right, up next, other officers worth mentioning. We have Ryan Winters. He is the Master Trooper of Indiana State Police, and he is important because he interviewed a man named Ryan Bocher. I don't know how to say his name. We're going to just make it up as we go along. So this Ryan Bocher, and he interviewed him and he created what is referred to in filings and throughout transcripts and whatnots. It's going to be referred to as the Winters Report. So remember that. Ryan Winters, Master Trooper, Indiana State Police, he created the Winters Report because he interviewed Ryan Bocher, and that is what ended up the Winters Report. Up next, we have John Gallipo, and he is the prison warden at Westville Correctional Facility. He comes in some of the filings, some of the things that we talk about. He gave statements saying that Richard Allen was fine and he was doing great, even though he really wasn't. So there's that. In addition, we also have Sergeants Jones and Robinson. I don't know their first names. They're just referred to in a document as Sergeants Jones and Robinson. These are the two correctional officers at the Westville Correctional Facility that were seen wearing Odinite patches by the defense team. And not just one defense team, but two defense teams. So Richard Allen's current team, who was his first team, and then Judge Gull kicked them off and brought on two more, which we will actually get into shortly. And then, which actually, here, it is in the court of law. Let's move on to the next couple of slides, and I'll finish my thought. So here is the current prosecutor of Carroll County, prosecuting attorney Nick McLeland. He was appointed. It is a position that gets appointed. I can't remember who appoints him now, but he was appointed in January 2018. So he is the one currently prosecuting this case. Some former prosecutors to note: Robert Ives, retired prosecutor for Carroll County. He retired in December of 2017. And then we also have Shane Evans. He was the former chief deputy prosecutor for Carroll County. So like one of the other, not the prosecutor, but under him. So probably like a second in command or whatever, for Carroll County. And he was the mayor of Delphi during the homicides. So not only was he a prosecutor, he went on to become the mayor of Delphi. And then he resigned in August 2020 as mayor. And then he becomes the chief deputy prosecutor. Oh, okay. Sorry, I had it backwards. So he was the mayor first, then he becomes the chief deputy prosecutor in 2020. And he has now become, most recently, July of this year, he was appointed the Carroll County Circuit Court judge, which is freaking crazy because it is. Some allege and think that he may be part of the homicides. Possible. Um, I think, remember this because we're going to look at the sketches later, and I didn't add him to compare to the sketches, but I think that he could almost run or almost be considered, um, maybe comparable, should I say, to the second sketch that comes out by police, but we'll get there in due time. All right, so back to the defense team. So Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie were his original defense team. He has now since added on Jennifer Jones Auger for a limited purpose. So we don't see her as much. We don't see her argue, but she might write some filings and do some things. So we've got Baldwin and Rosie are like the main guys. They were the original team. So at one point in time last year, Judge Gull just said, you know what? I don't want you guys to be doing this case anymore, and I'm throwing you off. So she assigned William Libredo and Robert Scrumman, who you can see on the screen right now. After she removed Baldwin and Rosie, she assigned these two. The Supreme Court reinstated Brad Brad, Rosie, and Andrew Baldwin. So they are back on. She cannot take them off again. Current presiding judge, like I said, Judge Gull. I've been referring to her, Judge Gull, Judge Frances C. Gull. And I cannot stand this woman based on her rulings and her rudeness, and I just can't take it. She is the Allen Superior Court Criminal Division judge. So that's what she does, but she is the special prosecutor in this case. Uh, why they assigned a special prosecutor, I'm not really sure. But, or special judge, I mean. But prior to Judge Gall taking this case on, we had a different presiding judge who was Judge Benjamin Diner of the Carroll County Circuit Court. So this is why we have a special judge now, I guess, because he recused himself in 2022. So remember, the homicides happened in 2017. He recused himself in 2022. This is when, or right before, I think he recused himself right before Richard Allen may have been arrested. So he recused himself from the Delphi case, reason unknown. He then shortly thereafter retired in 2024. Doesn't really look retirement age to me, so I don't know. What do you guys think about him retiring so early? All right, so that was everyone in the court of law, the attorneys, the judges, and whatnot. So now we are going to look at some eyewitnesses from the day of February 13th, 2017. Sarah Carbow is a name you probably hear often. She is the person who um, created the first eyewitness sketch of the perpetrator. She stated that she saw a man walking west away from Monon High Bridge while she was driving by. So she's driving by at, an excelled rate. She's probably going 40 miles an hour or more. I'm not sure what the speed limit is there, but I doubt she's going very slow. And she sees a guy out of the corner of her eye while she is driving past this person walking. She describes the man as having a blue colored jacket and blue jeans. So a blue jacket, blue jeans. She misquoted him. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoopsies. She misquoted him as describing him as muddy and bloody. He was just muddy and wet, I think was what the quote was actually supposed to be. I can't remember, but she was misquoted as calling him muddy and bloody because she did not say that. She said muddy, if anything. Oh gosh, stop doing that. Sorry. All right, so she also provided the description for sketch number 1, which was released in July of 2017. So the crimes happened in February of 2017, and we don't get a sketch until July. So that's interesting. The next person who's an eyewitness that you might have heard of is Betsy Blair. She was walking on the trail February 13th, and she saw this man who she described as a white male wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket. She saw the man standing on a platform from 50 feet away. So she probably had a better view, better description of him. He obviously is younger than this guy. Sketch 1 and sketch 2 are quite different. The Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter would have you believe it's the same person. I don't buy it. Anyways, moving on. All right, so Betsy Blair provided the description for sketch 2, which was released 2 years later after the crimes, and this was released April 2019. It's also believed that this one might have been created first but released last. There was a whole big thing about it when it came. I don't remember it all, but yeah. So this one is technically sketch 2 because that's when it was released second, but there is some confusion as to maybe sketch 2 was actually done first and sketch 1 was done later, but they waited to put sketch 2 out. I don't know. So, anyways, the next eyewitness, Bree Wilbur, is one of the 4 girls on Freedom Bridge. So there was 4 teenage, high school age, whatever girls that were walking on Freedom Bridge. They described a man wearing a blue or a black windbreaker jacket. So you can see that the description of the jacket is all different. So we had blue jacket, blue uh, blue colored jacket, a blue or a black windbreaker jacket. And then they also just Bree also described the man as walking with a purpose with his hands in his pocket and his head down. So that's a weird way to put it, but that's what she observed. Next is Anna Spath. She's another one of the four girls on Freedom Bridge. She described a man wearing a blue jacket and a light blue faded blue jeans. Light blue faded blue jeans. She described the jacket as a canvas duck jacket, which in my mind makes me think of those Carhartt jackets, which is, I believe, what it was. It's one of those Carhartt jackets, or at least that's what they're saying. That's what most people think Bridge Guy was wearing. All right, so Ryan Bocher, who I mentioned earlier in reference to the Winters report, he observed some disturbing images on Brad Holder's social media accounts leading up to and around the time of the homicides. And he turned over these images that were mimicking the crime scene. So a lot of these images were very disturbing, mimicking the crime scene, mimicking sacrifices, mimicking runes and things like that. So he turned all these images over to the Indiana State Police, and that is when he was interviewed by Trooper Winters, and it's memorialized in quote unquote the Winters Report. Some other potential suspects besides Richard Allen. Who else could have done this? One suspect that comes up a lot, and there are many, 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 and we're not going to even go over all of them. I'm going to go over some of them. So he is kind of a solo suspect. So Ron Logan, he owned the property on which the girls were actually found, and they were found 1,400 feet away from his home. He had a big, big property there, big wooded land and um, that kind of thing. So he owned this property that the girls were found on. So that is, you know, suspect number one. He was investigated by police early on. Allegedly, he asked family to lie about his whereabouts on the day of the crimes. His phone puts him near Monon High Bridge, so that's some other interesting evidence about him. And he has an ex-girlfriend who suspected he might have been involved. She thought, she came out and told law enforcement she thought he might have done it. That he might have had something to do with it. And he also walked with a limp, possibly could have been Bridge Guy, because it is said that Bridge Guy kind of had a limp too. Although he is walking on like a wooded platform with slats that, you could fall through. So who the heck knows? But yeah, so that's Ron Logan, solo suspect. Next, we have Keegan Kline and Jerry Anthony Kline, and we talked about them in the last video, which I did. It's in the memo of law for for introducing or not allowing the motion in limine from Nick McLeland to eliminate the defense's opportunity to use third party defense. So, okay, so this is Keegan Kline. No, you can see a picture of him. I don't have a picture of his dad. Probably better that I don't. As you can see below, catfish account Anthony Schatz. So he admitted to creating a fake account, a fake profile, I think on Instagram and Snapchat, with this Anthony Schatz name as his profile. And this was purposely, he admitted to creating this account to communicate with underage girls with the expectation of receiving explicit images from them, hoping to, anyways. So he's kind of a scumbag. Um, Hold on. All right, never mind. Okay, so Keegan Kline, he was questioned about an incident. This happened just days after Abby and Libby were found. He was questioned about an incident involving a young girl who had this young girl had given her address to somebody named Anthony Schatz on one of his socials. And later, the next day, there was Keegan Klein found to be, or potentially Keegan Klein to be outside of her window, masked, peeking in her bedroom window, or something along those lines. So yeah, he was questioned about that incident. All right, so he also told someone that he was supposed to meet up with Libby, but she never showed up. So on that day, the day of the homicides, he said he was supposed to meet up with Libby, but she never showed up. He communicated with Libby via social media, and he was one of her last contacts. And law enforcement questioned him about that too, because he was one of the last people to talk to her. He is now, because of the homicides of Abby and Libby and the investigation into that, they found the communications with Anthony Schatz, aka Keegan Klein. Therefore, law enforcement decided, you know what, there's probable cause here to go and take his electronics. So they do. Keegan Klein lives at home with his father, Jerry Anthony Klein, who also has a criminal past with convictions of harassment of an adult nature, battery, and theft. And he made repeated adult, uh, intimately adult, explicit calls to a woman over and over again. He admitted to doing that. So that's part of his criminal past, the father. Um, Klein, Keegan, and Jerry Anthony live together. So it could be very plausible that Jerry Anthony, the father, may have used some of the counts that his son was using to talk to these underage girls. So I don't know exactly what Jerry Klein's charges are, but I do know that Keegan Klein faces 30 charges of child, rhymes with corn, and exploitation. So these two, even if they aren't involved in the homicides of Abby and Libby, are still disgusting pigs and deserve to be in jail, in my opinion. All right, moving on to the next slide. Other potential suspects, the Odinists. The so this is we're going to talk about all the people that might have some possible connection to Odinism. Up first, we've got Patrick Westphal. He comes up in the Delphi or the Franks memo. He comes up in many Delphi court filings. So just be aware, Patrick Westphal and Brad Holder's names go pretty much hand in hand, or at least they used to. And here's the story. So Patrick Westphal lived in Delphi at the time of the homicides. He was about a 7-minute drive, so it's very feasible that he or someone he knew could have abducted the girls that afternoon and taken them to Patrick Westphal's house to be returned to that area a little later that night. So Patrick Westphal is also known to have conducted acid true ceremonies in his home. Brad Holder would come to these along with other followers, disciples, whatever you want to call them. He is a Delphi Vinlander, so he's part of that crew. He stated that acid true is a warrior type religion. Remember that I said that. A quote unquote warrior type religion with many gods, including Thor and Odin. And yeah, that's the same Thor and Odin from the Marvel movies, played by Anthony Hopkins and Chris Liamsworth. Yeah, that's who they worship. So they seen in Patrick Westphal is seen in social media in a video that I think it was on Brad Holder's page, where he was painting the F rune on a tree using BLOOD. That is Patrick Westphal who does that. And he is also described as very dangerous and with powerful friends. Multiple people describe him as dangerous. Brad Holder no longer talks to him. They had a falling out. Here is Brad Holder, which, if anything, we'll get to that in the sketches. But if anyone looks like any of the sketches, I think Brad Holder looks like sketch number one, if you ask my opinion. All right, so he made many disturbing posts to social media resembling ritualistic sacrifice, runes, and other Odinistic references. This is the guy who Ryan Bocher came to Indiana State Police and said, look at all these crazy, disturbing images, and that's what created the Winters Report. So it's about this guy's social media. Brad Holder was friends with Patrick Westphal, and like by friends I mean like brothers, because that's what somebody even described them as. They were as tight could be. Friends with Patrick Westphal up until February 2017. Keep that in mind. Commonly hung out at the Monon High Bridge. He was seen a lot at the Monon High Bridge hanging out with another individual that we will be talking about. He was also often in Delphi attending Asatru religious ceremonies at Patrick Westphal's home. And he's also a Delphi Vinlander. Amber Holder is the ex-wife of Brad Holder. She claims that Brad and Patrick Westphal had a falling out in 2017 concerning, not just 2017, but February, the month of the crimes, concerning a ritual gone bad in the woods near a creek. That is very, very, very specific and accurate as it pertains to the Delphi crimes. Brad told Amber that Patrick Westphal and his crew took the girls' lives and that he's very dangerous. And if he told her more, he would be putting her at risk and he had to stay quiet. And yeah, so Brad Holder is scared of Patrick Westphal, in other words. Logan Holder is the son of Brad Holder. And he was dating Abby at the time of the homicides. And as you can see, they are pictured together, Abby and Logan. Um, I just thought it was another interesting fact that they do have he has an older brother named Levi who has aspirations of becoming a mortician. So that maybe kind of tells you how this family thinks with all the Asatru stuff. And now the son wants to be a mortician. I don't know. But I think Levi was in the military and then was going to try to become a mortician or something like that. He was away in the military during the times of the homicides. Levi was. So just to be clear, I don't think he had anything to do with it. I just thought it was interesting that he had aspirations to become a mortician. That's the only reason why I put him in there. All right. So up next is Johnny Messer. Johnny Messer is also part of the Delphi Vinlander crew. He's the recruiter for the Delphi crew, actually. He recruits people to join this crew with him, Patrick Westphal, and Brad Holder. He commonly hung out with Brad on Monon High Bridge. So the two of them would be seen hanging out together, just hanging out at the bridge. Brad Holder, Patrick Westphal, and Johnny Messer belonged to the same Vinlander club, and they were all very close friends. Johnny Messer knows Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, and Rod Abrams, the other three from Rushville, so he's the connection. He is the connection between the Delphi Vinlander crew and the Rushville recruits. We'll call them recruits. And in statements to police, Johnny Messer claimed that he had never been to Delphi, but we all know that that's a lie, especially because he's seen hanging out with Brad on the Monon High Bridge and things like that. So, yeah, he's claimed erroneously that he never has been to Delphi, but he also attends Asatru ceremonies at Patrick Westfall's house in Delphi every Sunday. So there's that. He's a liar, liar, pants on fire. All right, so Taylor Hornady is the ex-girlfriend of Johnny Messer. She told law enforcement that Johnny Messer and Patrick Westfall were like brothers. Okay, so Johnny Messer, Patrick Westfall, brothers. She lent a car to Johnny around Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day 2017. So the crimes happened on the 13th and they were found on the 14th. So Johnny borrows her car, and when he returns it, there's dried BLOOD on one side of it. He refuses to say how it got there. He says she says he had been, quote, up there with his Vinlander friends, up there meaning Delphi. So he went up there to go see his Delphi friends and came back with her car full of dried BLOOD on one side of it. So he never explained what it was from. Up next is Elvis Fields. He is a Delphi Vinlander recruit from Rushville. He confessed to two different sisters. So he has two separate sisters. On two separate occasions, he confessed to being involved in these crimes, being part of a gang, being a part of this brotherhood, and saying that he was there. Yeah, so on two separate occasions, he admitted to two different sisters that he had some involvement in these crimes. He is the one who, when dropped off at home by Detective Kevin Murphy, asked him if his spit was found on the girls, could he explain it away? Which isn't a very bright thing to ask a cop. So we kind of know what we're dealing with. Um, Elvis, Ned, and um, Rod are potentially not necessarily the brightest individuals, the sharpest individuals. They may even have some learning disabilities or um, some impairments mentally, and that may prevent them from making good decisions, let's say. They could be easily manipulated and coerced by individuals like a Johnny Messer, a Brad Holder, and a Patrick Westfall. And Vinlanders tend to, or Odinists, whatever you want to call them, they tend to prey on the individuals of that nature with a mental impairment or handicapped that, they might not be able to use their common sense to get them out of dangerous situations as much. And it's possible that that is what was going on here. So, anyways, he confessed to two different sisters on two separate occasions. He admitted or asked, rather, a question to Detective Murphy if his spit was on the girls. Could he explain it away? He is roommates with Rod Abrams, and he is friends with Brad Holder on Facebook. So there's the connection to another connection between the two groups. So Elvis Fields runs in the same circle as Rod Abrams and um, Ned Smith. And then you've got the other Vinlander group that Brad, he follows him on Facebook, Brad Holder. So he's got the connection to the Delphi Vinlander group by being friends with him and following him and mimicking his runes that he posts and things like that. However, so Elvis Fields lived 125 miles away from Delphi in Rushville. But that's not a problem because, as we know, he could have his phone activity wasn't he for someone who never left his phone. he didn't touch his phone the entire day. So it's an interesting, odd behavior from him for not using his phone that day of the crimes. And he is supposed to have been with Ned and Rod. Why do I keep getting those names confused? I can't keep them straight. Red and Nod. Red and Nod. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. No, Ned and Rod, which we'll get to. So he's friends with Rod Abrams and not just friends, but roommates. He's also friends with Ned Smith, who is like a father figure to him, according to Ned. Uh, he lived in Rushville. He was supposed to have been with Ned and Rod that entire day visiting a friend in Quincy. All right, so he was also interested in joining the Vinlander crew, and he had discussed placing sticks near Abby's head to form horns. So specifically, he had mentioned that to one of his sisters in one of those odd confessions. All right, so next is Rod Abrams. He's roommates with Elvis Fields. He's interested also in joining the Delphi Vinlander crew. He lied to law enforcement, claiming that he, Elvis, and Ned Smith were, oh, sorry, Muncie. I said Quincy. Muncie. They were in Muncie on February 13th. So he lied because their phone data didn't prove that. And this is that window of time where they all could have been driving to Delphi and driving back, and there was plenty of time for them to do so. There was like a 9 hour window. So it was how I think it was like an 8 or 9 hour window that Elvis Fields' phone, somebody told him, leave your phone at home, and he did. And so his phone wasn't touched for 8 hours, 9 hours, and that could basically, you could kind of infer that that's how long it took for them to do whatever they were doing. Oh yeah, he lied. He's also the employer of Elvis Fields. So Rod Abrams was Elvis Fields' boss. Not sure what they did, but he was his boss since 2005, but employment ended sometime in 2017. It's like all of these people are cutting ties with one another in 2017, the year that the homicides take place. So it's very, very bizarre. And lastly, this Ned Smith, who is interested in joining the Delphi Vinlander crew as well. He's a self-proclaimed father figure to Elvis and Rod. So if he's a father figure, how old is he? Because these two are pretty old as it is. I don't know, but that's why we couldn't find a picture. He's too old. Um, but yeah, so he's supposedly a father figure to Elvis and Rod. He's rarely seen separated from Elvis Fields. He also paid for Elvis's attorney, which is interesting to note. And he wanted to sit in on the police interview with Elvis. Say what? He paid for Elvis's attorney and he wanted to sit in on the police interview with Elvis and law enforcement. So, what does that say about Ned Smith? And potentially being worried about some things that Elvis might say. I don't know, you tell me. I'll let you guys decide. All right, so up next, we're going to look really quickly at the sketches. I don't have a lot to say about these other than let's just take a look. So, sketch number 1, July 2017, this was released. As I said earlier, April 2019, that's when sketch number 2 was released. If anything, I think Brad Holder, this is Brad Holder down here. I think Brad Holder has been pictured in hats like that on his social media. I think it's him, if anybody, out of these people. And I don't see any kind of resemblance to Richard Allen, really, except maybe the nose here, but not even like, but it's not like he's got facial hair and short, he keeps his hair short and, cut real nice. And then this kid, I think this is like a younger a young adult or a young kid, and like a teenager or a young adult potentially, or it could have been Shane Evans, the mayor, prosecutor, and judge. That guy. It could be him. That's my opinion on that. But other than that, I don't really see any resemblances. Maybe Johnny Messer could be this guy, but look at that beard though. You would remember that giant beard. And by the way, Brad Holder changes his look a lot, so this is not don't be fooled by the beard because I've seen him in goatees and little like soul patches and things where he's just got the soul patch and then he's got the this hat on, this type of hat, whatever that is. So that's my opinion. I just think he looks the most like Brad Holder, but what do you guys think? I mean, there even then there's still like differences. Like Brad Holder doesn't have hair, and this guy's got hair sticking out of his cap and his back, the back of the neck. And obviously Brad Holder shaves his head. I don't know if he always does though. He might be a chameleon, if I could speak. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who looks like who? Does anybody look like any of the sketches? I don't know. I just don't think so. And then you got Superintendent Doug Carter saying that the sketches are the same person. And I just can't even buy that with a straight face. There's no freaking way that these sketches are the same person. No way. And he said, well, maybe it's a combination of the two or somewhere in the middle. Nobody. These are two separate people. It's got to be. All right. But, anyways, let's move on to the connection. Finally, this is the very last slide that I have. So, you've got the Delphi Vinlander crew made up of Patrick Westphal, Brad Holder, and Johnny Messer, who is the recruiter. Down here, you've got Logan's son, who's dating Abby and best friends with Libby. So that's the connection to the Delphi Vinlander crew. But then you've got this Johnny Messer, who is also the recruiter, and he knows all of these individuals: Elvis Fields, Rod Abrams, and Ned Smith. So that is the connection. That is how, in my opinion, this is the most likely, reading through the evidence and reading through the court documents and what the defense says based on, and reading through the prosecution's filings that make no sense to me. This makes the most sense to me. That the Vinlander recruits and the Delphi Vinlander crew got together. Somehow it had something to do with Logan's son was dating her, so that's how she got chosen. And Libby happened to be maybe potentially just an, a coincidence, or it just happened to be unlucky that she was there at that time. Maybe if, it was just Abby, it would have just been her, but maybe they wanted them both. I don't know. Because who knows what those communications were beforehand. And that's what we need to know. And we should find out what Logan and Brad Holder's phones were, who they were talking to, and the communications that day. But no idea if we'll ever get it because law enforcement didn't do their job. So that is where I leave you. I hope this helped. Just putting this together helped me so much in kind of understanding who everybody was. There's so many people. I am going to try to find a way to make this a live link so you guys can look at it and view it if you need to, because like when I'm reading the filings and I find myself like, who the heck is that again? So, I want to leave this available for all of you guys to be able to look through and scroll through and take your time to learn who all these people are, because there's a lot, I know. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Please hit the like button. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care and have a good one. Bye now.